What's up, guys? Welcome to the third episode of From the World to Mānoa. I'm Trevor Reed, and as you can tell, this week we are on video finally. Some of you asked that I do video just because it's a little more interesting, so I took that into account, and here we are. I wanted to thank Donovan for helping me set up today. The set looks awesome, and Kaya is also here now. Both of them are my colleagues, and they're both helping me out with the show. So today I had a little trouble bringing people in, but I got my roommate from California, and he's going to be talking with us. So it should be an interesting conversation. I thought, because I'm also from California, I speak to someone I know, and we can have an interesting conversation. So, without further ado, let's get to Zach. Hi, Zach.
Hello.
It's nice to talk to somebody I know.
Absolutely, it's great.
Okay, so where are you from? Tell them where you're from.
So technically I'm kind of from like North Bay, California. Some people, when I'm talking to people who aren't from California, I either say North Bay or wine country because it's kind of in between the two, so.
Sure, and North Bay, for people that are not from California, this is Bay Area, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
San Francisco, people would usually associate that with.
Yeah, like an hour north of San Francisco.
Yeah, so when I first met Zach 3 years ago, he lived in Petaluma, California. You're now in Santa Monica.
Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa.
Yeah, Santa Rosa, California.
Okay, and why don't you explain to everyone how you ended up in Hawaii?
Well, that's a great question. There was a few factors. I'd say one of the biggest ones was you were going here, and you definitely pushed the idea of me, registering for going to Hawaii. I had a couple other colleges, and actually at the time I was living in Vermont, trying to go to University of Vermont in Burlington. That didn't work out. So honestly, between the colleges that I had, it just seemed like Hawaii was the best fit. It had good programs. I'm an anthropology major, so it seemed like it had a pretty good amount of programs for that. And, Hawaii is such a beautiful place. I had never been. I thought I wanted to, go on an adventure, get to be with my old roommate from the college I transferred from, and that just seemed pretty ideal.
So Zach and I first met at Humboldt State University in Northern California, and we didn't know each other at that point. We just met as roommates, and we were assigned together. And we met there. COVID happened. We went home. A lot of things happened. He was in Vermont. Things in Vermont did not work out. I was going to Hawaii. I said, transfer over, and here we are. So,
here we are.
Yeah. No, it's been good.
Yeah, it's great.
My time's almost over, but he's going to be staying here, and it'll be good. How do you like it so far?
It's great. Transferring any college at first is, always somewhat of a challenge. Like, you have to meet a lot of people, push yourself, socially out of your comfort zone. But once I started meeting people, it was great. And, I love the just scenery here. The campus is beautiful. I like the classes I'm going to, and yeah, it's just overall good experience.
Coming from California, and I know, for me, coming from San Diego, I'd say it's a little bit more like Hawaii. Coming from the Bay Area, I also know how that can be too, the culture there. Mm-hmm. Not quite the same as San Diego.
No.
Did you get culture shock at all when you first got here? Like, how was your transition?
Yeah, I mean, definitely culture shock for sure. I'd say there's just like a lot more diversity here. I lived close to San Francisco, which is pretty diverse, going there. So that was, kind of familiar, but where I lived, it was really predominantly like white and Latino.
Sure.
So yeah, coming here, just having a lot more diversity was definitely somewhat different, but also just like living on the islands with locals and native Hawaiians and how they have their own culture and stuff. Definitely a lot different than what I'm used to, so I'm still learning a lot. So.
Yeah. Is it, I don't know how to put it, but I was almost sort of, when I got here, it took me a minute to realize that I was on an island in the middle of the ocean and not connected to the mainland. I remember one night I was watching the news and they showed a map of the U.S. and I was like, I'm not there. Did you get any of the island fever ever? I know we've only been here for less than a year, but...
Yeah. Honestly, I don't feel like that's hit too much. Definitely when I go to beaches and stuff and just kind of like look out on the water, I'm like, wow, there's just like water for so many miles. But I don't feel like it really hits unless, like I'm same kind of thing. I'm looking at a map or something and kind of just like zoom out from where I am, and I'm like, oh, I'm just like in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Like, this is kind of crazy. But I don't know if that's really like fully set in.
Hopefully that doesn't set in ever while you're here.
Yeah.
But
no, it's great.
Is there anything that I guess you miss? Like, I know we've been back home since, but is there anything that you miss being here? Like, you're excited about being in Hawaii, but at the same time you wish, A, B, and C were here for you?
Yeah, I'd say, I have pretty close friends back home, so every now and then I miss them, and, we'll text them and hit them up. I'd say Mexican food. I mean, just like the Mexican food back at home is so good. But food here is also just like really good. It's just, different types of food.
Sure.
What else? I mean, it is such a different environment, so I guess maybe every now and then I miss like the California coast, and just, things that I would do back home and like the environment there. I miss my family, but it's kind of just basic things. I don't feel like I miss a whole lot, and being here is like really nice. So I feel like there's a lot of things that can take up my time and not make me think about those things.
This is slightly off topic, but last week, Joshua, who I was talking to, we spoke about politics and how the politics here on the island are kind of separate from mainland politics, which I thought was interesting. What has been, because we came from California's pretty liberal, and I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you and I come from relatively liberal areas, and we came from a very liberal college. So, not that you're investing yourself in politics here, but what have you gathered on that? I just think it's really interesting to speak with, locals here and kind of talk about those things, and they're like, whereas back home it's more like people are very aggressive about it. I'm just curious on what your opinion is on that.
It's interesting. I feel like, excuse me, I just feel like maybe I haven't really talked to a whole lot of locals and like their political views, so maybe I'm not like fully versed on those things, but I definitely do feel like there is a difference in like how much politics is brought up just in everyday, like, people I talk to and stuff. I definitely feel like it's not brought up as much, whereas like back home it's like that's kind of like a really big thing that people are always talking about, different like events that are happening that are political, and then like it definitely, like, you wouldn't talk to certain people about political stuff depending on like your opinion, and their opinion too, so just like, if you're friends or something, you might not bring that up, but if you are, like, that is discussion, like that is a very big topic that people would, me and my friends would talk about politics and stuff. And my family was very liberal. I'm somewhat liberal, but I definitely like hearing other people's opinions on stuff. So it's definitely way more talked about, just like on the mainland than I think it is here. I don't really hear a whole lot of political talk.
It's kind of nice, honestly.
Yeah.
Because back home in California, at least in San Diego, there's a lot of like, if you're this, we're not going to be friends. And here it's more, we're friends if we want to be friends, and let's go to the beach.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, there would be situations at like high school and stuff that would get very tense, where people would get very like heated or like fired up about politics and like fight about it, and big arguments and stuff like that. So
as far as your parents, so were your parents originally from California?
No, so my dad's from Massachusetts and my mom's from Philadelphia.
And how'd they end up in California, Bay Area?
Yeah, so actually, let's see, my mom followed her friend when she was like 19 and ended up going to UC Santa Barbara. My dad ended up here because he followed a girlfriend, I think, over here, and then went to kind of like small liberal arts colleges, and then they met in like grad school in California. So.
And then just decided to stay?
Yeah, they met in San Francisco and really I think loved San Francisco, so they lived there, and then Mill Valley, so.
Is there anything about the way your parents are individually that they've brought from their culture back where they're originally from that you kind of realize in your own family culture?
Yeah, it's funny. The first thing that came to my mind was road rage. It was actually, so yeah, my mom's from Philly, so, every now and then, some intense road rage or, flipping the bird every now and then, she's pretty good about it, I'd say, compared to the rest of the family on that side. My dad, everyone has road rage. I guess it's just maybe a little different. So that, and then, what else? I think, my mother grew up in a pretty diverse neighborhood. So I think she was more inclined to kind of get us to try different things and she introduced a lot of different kinds of food to us and didn't just kind of stick to Italian food and stuff like that, and would bring us to San Francisco and go to museums, cultural museums and stuff like that. So I think she really tried to kind of introduce a lot of different cultures in our lives when we were pretty young, and traveling too. She tried to travel a lot to different places. So I think that was a big part. I
think road rage is funny because I've been in the car with a few people that are from here, and they'll speed up or something, and they'll be like, "I'm so sorry, I'm not a crazy driver, I promise." And in my head, I'm like, "You trust me, you don't know.
This is nothing.
That's nothing. You're good." Mm-hmm. I don't know. California is just a different beast.
Oh yeah.
We kind of just have to know how to be aggressive drivers because it's just crazy.
It's 5 miles over the speed limit always. In LA is crazy.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up a more serious topic just because of something that happened this week. And you and I have talked about it before, but so there was this shooting this week. And I've been thinking a lot about, gun laws in Hawaii, and I've been to a few ordeals at the police department headquarters here, and as well as the Capitol, just to see some stuff that has been going on in my journalism classes. And there are definitely people here that, they want their guns and they want to be able to carry, but it's not that many. And it just doesn't seem, I think it's a problem everywhere nowadays, but it just doesn't seem as big of a problem here, which is great. I'm glad it's not a problem here, but coming from California, what is your mindset on it, I guess, first of all? Obviously, it's a sad thing. You're not going to say, oh, it's fine. Mm-hmm. But, what is your mindset on everything that's going on right now?
In terms of, mass shootings or, gun control?
No, not gun control. We won't get into that. But
okay, yeah. I was like...
No. Mass shootings in schools, mainly.
Definitely, it's really sad. I think, there's definitely something wrong, compared to other countries. They don't have anywhere close to as much of a problem as the United States has with that issue. I think partially it is, there's a lot of access to guns, but also I really think, schools need more, support in actually, taking care of, kids' specific needs. Yeah. I think, mental illness is huge with shootings and people going through I'd say junior high to high school. It's pretty nasty. Like, kids can be very mean to other kids, and like,
Yeah.
I think, you know, some people don't have that kind of like family home support, and if you don't have that, I think that's really hard on a kid when you're trying to go through like high school and stuff. So yeah, I think there does need to be like more focus on like mental health and like things like those.
Do you feel
like those
safer
things.
here, like going to school here?
Yeah, I'd say, certainly compared to Humboldt State, I think I'd say I feel safer. Yeah, definitely being on the islands compared to like mainland, I think there is somewhat of a more like a feeling of safety in terms of like mass shootings. But you know,
It's bad, man.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, I've been thinking the last few days, and I'm like, it's like in the back of my mind where I'm like sort of nervous to go on campus today.
yeah,
Like, honestly. And then I like keep thinking about my brother too. I'm like, he's in a senior year of high school, and then he's about to go to college. He still has 4 more years of school.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like a weird thing that we shouldn't be thinking about.
Definitely. You know, I feel like college might be a tiny bit safer compared to like high school, but still just like, who knows? And
Yeah.
that's crazy is, you know, I've never experienced any kind of like shooting personally, but I definitely, it's like in the back of my mind, like being like somewhat paranoid about like, oh my God, like even outside of school too, like
Yeah.
whether someone has a gun or not, which is why I've tried to work on road rage as well, because you never know.
I think COVID messed things up so much more too. You know, mental illness, that track. But it's like, I don't know. What do you do? I think the topic of bullying is so interesting too, because not that things didn't happen like a few decades ago, but I don't support bullying. That's not what I'm saying right now, guys.
Yeah.
But I think that like the way bullying was thought of like prior was a lot different. Like when I speak to adults, like it was almost like bullying kind of structured certain people, and not all, but like helped people like get to where they wanted to be, and like used bullying as like a, you know, it's interesting. And now bullying is like, I just think of it differently than when I think of bullying in the past. Both are bad. I don't think bullying should be a thing at all, but it's just, there's so many things we need to tackle, and I'm like, how?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, certainly I'd say it has different impact than it did back then.
Yeah.
But as to like specific issue of like why that is, I'm not sure why, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that was a little dark, but well, I'll get to something a little lighter now. Pop culture, like in California, it's bigger. We have LA, we have, I mean, even the Bay Area, San Francisco, there's a lot more pop culture. Here it's Hawaii. There's still like somewhat like that kind of stuff, but it's not the same, and I actually find it something I miss being around. I miss like there's trends here and everything. Like everything is the same around the world, I think, but it's just stronger in other places. Is that something you've noticed? Like feeling that almost for me, it's almost like a pressure when I'm in California, but like not negatively. Like I can just feel it around me. Like there's like hard trends going around, and certain people fit into certain categories on what they're trying to be and who they're trying to be, which is, it can be bad, but I also think it's kind of cool because there's so much diversity in the pop culture realm in California. Mm-hmm. Is that something you've felt here and there, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, back in California, San Francisco, like people definitely like have a lot of freedom in terms of how they express themselves, which I think is pretty cool. And like there's a lot of like different, very kind of like out there styles and fashion and stuff like that you see walking around. You know, trends, I'd say, you know, most of it's in San Francisco, but then kind of like resonates out towards like where I live and stuff. So you'll have trends starting there, and then kind of like you'll see it pop up, you know, back at my hometown. Here, you know, I see it too. I'd say, you know, I feel like, you know, the like TikTok and things like that and like trends on that, it's like spreads so fast everywhere. But, you know, I think California has just like a lot of diversity in like pop culture and like just a whole lot of, yeah, just like freedom in totally different kinds of styles that you see everywhere, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. It's just, I think you brought up a good point, like you do see it here too, and I agree. I think I'm realizing, I just went to France and you know that, but I think I'm realizing that there's differences in all these places, but it's also very just the same, and we're all just the same people doing different things, which is really cool. But yeah, speaking of culture though, you're an anthropology major, right?
Mm.
Is that what you want to do?
Culture wise,
Like anthropology, like
yes.
in your career?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I want to, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah. Just because, guys, I spoke with Zach a few months ago and he wasn't sure, but I'm glad to know that he is for sure now.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive. So,
Okay.
yeah.
What do you want to do? Do you know? Like, do you have an idea?
So kind of the main one that I'm following is like environmental anthropology. I think would be very interesting. Kind of studying people and like how they interact with their environment and how that kind of affects their surrounding environment as well. You know, as well as like cultural anthropology interests me, so I think those can kind of go hand in hand as well, like doing both culture and environment.
Sure.
So yeah, I'd say that was kind of the more specific anthropology that I'm interested in.
That's awesome. And you were anthropology in Humboldt too, right?
Yeah, I was a psych major and then transferred to
That's right.
anthropology, yeah.
Do you like this program more as far as?
Yeah, I'd say there's like a lot more flexibility in things.
Probably a lot better to be like in a different culture too, learning about it, you know?
Exactly, and I'd say that was definitely one of the motivators of coming here too, is like that I'm actually going to be living like in a whole different culture and learning about it, which is definitely like very interesting to me. I definitely enjoy the Hawaiian studies class that I'm taking. It's very interesting. So
I remember I was going to make you a slideshow back then of why this anthropology program is good for you, like it is a reason for you to come here.
that's good.
But yeah, that's great. Well, I want to bring up a conversation we had last night because I thought it was a little bit fun, and you were just talking about the environment just now, and it came to mind. I was making dinner last night, and Zach came up to me, and he was like, "Do you want to have kids, man?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I do want to have kids, preferably 4." And he was like, "What?" He was like, "That's a lot of kids." And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm not gonna do it right now." And so we talked about that, and I asked him, well, let's just have the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I want kids. I would like to have 4. Do you want kids? Before we get into it, just off the bat, do you want kids?
I'm really unsure whether I want kids or not. I think it would be a like great experience, and like I feel like that's like the end goal for like a lot of people in their life. But I have some concerns like about having kids. So,
what are the concerns?
Well, one would be like I feel like I don't know if this is selfish or not, but I really just want to like live as much life as I can where I don't have. This is kind of harsh, but like don't have the burden of like taking care of a child.
Okay.
I'm partially an anthropology major because I really want to travel.
Yeah.
So I feel like one of the big goals I have in life is to like travel as much as possible, and doing that with a child like is pretty hard. And if I'm doing it for a job, obviously that's a little bit different, but yeah, so I guess I feel like when you have a child, like you are basically like devoting your entire life to that child. So that's definitely, I feel like, kind of my biggest concern, financially too, but like obviously I think that just kind of comes, you just worry about that when you have that kid, and hopefully obviously you kind of wait till you are financially stable to do that. So
those are your reasons though.
Yeah, I'd say
Okay.
yeah.
I think, because I think I had in my mind that it was because I've spoken to a lot of people that are like, the world is going to die. And then, like, they're like, I'm never going to have kids. And I'm like, why? And they're like, that's so mean. And I'm like, no, I don't think it is. Like, I can understand what you're saying. And I thought that's not that harsh. I'm not saying you did that, but I thought that was more what it was about, is the environment.
Well, yeah, it definitely, I like that. I forgot to mention, like, yeah, that is definitely also a part of it. But I think, we talked about it, and I don't think that my kids would be living in like a like end of the world type
I agree with you.
environment. Like I think you mentioned that, and I agree with that. However, like maybe their kids might.
Yeah.
But
they're definitely gonna like see those changes though, like a little bit, like probably actually pretty significantly, but not to the point where they're like,
it's like world
like the world is gonna start icing over. But actually, Zach and I talked about how we're probably gonna see AI more prominently than before we see environmental changes that are really, really gonna impact us.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, a little more scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Back to like the environment, I did hear, I don't know what, maybe it was on TikTok or something, I heard someone talking about, this exact issue of like climate change and having kids. And they kind of brought up the point that, if we do continue to have kids, like that's just like the more and more people that we have, like eventually one of those kids is going to like come up with some kind of idea to like efficiently combat climate change. So that kind of point, like I was like, okay, like maybe I don't have to be as concerned with that. But yeah, AI is a whole different topic, and it's definitely scary. I definitely worry about like the economy and jobs with like AI and stuff like that.
Well, before I go into what I want to tell you right now is, first, I agree with what you're saying about like when you have kids, you're gonna have to devote, your life to that. That's true. You should do that. But also, I think once you get to the point where you're like ready to have kids, you probably won't feel the same about it, Because I mean, you know what I mean. Anyway, so the environment stuff, coming from California, I think we've both seen like, I think it's talked about in a lot of places. It's actually talked about here a lot too, obviously, because it's very environmental here. But in California, we see it a lot and hear about it a lot. Do you think that like structures the way we think about that kind of stuff, just being in our realm of California and hearing about climate change and all that sort of stuff? Like, do you think it would be different if we came from, and I think this comes down again to like liberal views and conservative views, unfortunately, but apart from that, just like in our space, do you think it would be different if we came from like Midwest or something?
Right. Yeah, obviously California, I'd say with the fires was kind of the biggest thing where I first started being like, okay, yeah, like the environment is changing, whereas maybe in the Midwest you might not experience that, except for like I don't know, it's like Louisiana considered Midwest because they are obviously getting like a ton of hurricanes, but
maybe. I think they have the coast though.
Okay. Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, I'd say definitely being California and just it being more like kind of liberal leaning. We had our fair share of like conservatives and Republicans in my area, but climate change was a huge topic and like everything kind of, and like environment too. So a lot of people I knew were pretty big advocates for like climate change and wanting to, environmental justice, and especially like my family too. So I feel like I kind of grew up just being kind of like in that environment, which definitely I think puts a bias like towards like a lot of things for me. So yeah, I think it definitely had an impact growing up in California.
I don't know if you feel like this, but when I think of California, I actually split it up in my mind. Like, it's not just this big state. I don't know if do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of just split it like right down the middle, like NorCal and SoCal. But
okay. I think I'm more like, I split it like right above LA. And so it's like SoCal, and then there's the Bay Area, and because we went to Humboldt, like I kind of split it, like when you start hitting the just random vegetation until you get to Humboldt County.
Yeah, definitely in terms of terrain, I would split it that way too, because it is a lot different than like Bay Area.
I almost like connect it, like in my mind, I connect Northern California up there with Oregon more.
I'd say, yeah, I mean, they kind of look similar in like forests and stuff like that, but Oregon even more so.
California's just a wild place.
Yeah, I mean, it's so different, like depending on where you go. It's like a whole nother state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We come from the I think I didn't like California for a long time because I was just so immersed in it for so long. And I just, before I came here, I was like, I'm done. I'm not coming back here. Like, I want to leave. And I think leaving actually helped me a little bit because I'm like, okay, I miss it. I don't think I could stay in San Diego and like live there for my life, maybe for a few years after this, but it's cool. Like, we have to admit, like, talking to people that are from, I spoke with someone from Kansas like a few weeks ago, and it was just like different. Like, I'm like, okay, I should be kind of grateful for where I'm coming from. Like, not that those places are awful, but I mean, we have so many different things, you know? We have the desert, we have the ocean, we have mountains, we have like literally every climate. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'd say definitely kind of very similar. I like was so ready to just be like, all right, I want to live anywhere but like my hometown or like anywhere kind of near, like get out of California. But I'd say after, living here, and then also I was living in Vermont and then drove like back to California. So we drove all the way through the Midwest and like Texas and like Tennessee and all those states, and it's just, there's like nothing. I mean, like the cities are nice and like stuff like that, but it is like so flat and just very plain kind of. So I think I definitely took living in California for granted. Definitely.
Yeah. We're getting tornado warnings there now. Like right now, there's tornado warnings.
I think I did hear about that, which is insane.
I left in the beginning of January. I kid you not, guys. For those of you that don't know, it's been raining non-stop since I left. Non-stop. There's snow everywhere. Like at one point, there was snow all over the state. Like it was snowed out in places where it has not snowed for like decades and decades.
Yeah.
It's weird. Climate change. But yeah. So anyway, I think we're probably out of time, but I want to end it here. Can you can look at me or you can look directly into the camera, right? This camera right here, right? It's up to you. Can you tell everyone in your own words, however you want to say it, who are you and what makes you unique?
Well, I'm Zach Scherer. What makes me unique? I'd say I'm a very empathetic person. I grew up with two loving parents, both actually therapists. So, I was being read like a book since I was a child in terms of emotions and stuff like that, which I think, has a unique impact on myself. I'd say I'm a very individualistic, independent kind of person. And I really like meeting people. I'm an anthropology major, so meeting people who are very different from me is kind of exciting and invigorating. So I think that makes me unique.
Awesome. Who are you? I meant who. Do you want to do that part one more time? Just other than just your name.
Other than yeah.
I guess that's kind of the same thing though. Unique and who are you?
Yeah. I'd say besides that, I identify with being Jewish, so that's part of who I am. I've played lacrosse for 10 years, another big part of my life. And yeah, I think I'm an interesting person.
You're an interesting person.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also accept you, Trevor.
Thank you, Zach.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, guys, that's the end there, but I'm very, very, very excited to be visual now, so we're gonna keep doing this. I think I'm gonna set up Spotify and maybe SoundCloud, maybe a few other things. I'm gonna go through this app, but so still will be audio, obviously. Even if you listen to it on YouTube, you don't have to watch it, but we're gonna stay visual. I'm excited about the set. This is awesome. Donovan and I, you know what? Donovan did a great job, because I kind of told Donovan what I wanted and like gave him what I wanted, and then he made it happen. So Donovan was a big help today, guys. All right, guys, tune in next week for episode 4 next Friday. Let's see who we can get on here, because it's gonna be fun now, because I have to find people kind of outside the West Coast and Hawaii. So I don't know what the demographic looks like at this school for people on the East Coast and everything, but I'm going to search, and we're gonna talk with different people. All right, guys. Thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for watching. This was awesome. I'll see you next week.